Hey, I'm Chase, and this is All Things Random. Today is the third of the 3 videos where I compare the Undone Snoopy Aces to the Omega Speedmaster. Now, if you find that interesting, let's hop into the video. Okay, today I'm going to be looking at the Omega Speedmaster in comparison to the Undone Snoopy Aces. Now, I'm going to get a few things out in the open right now when it comes to an alternative watch that I think. When I think of alternative watch, I don't think of an homage watch like an Invicta Pro Diver and a Rolex Submariner. An Invicta Pro Diver can be on someone's wrist and someone thinks first it's a Rolex Submariner. That's not what I believe an alternative is. I think an alternative is a watch with similar aesthetics, however it stands on its own. So I want to get that clear and out of the way first. Now, I have 5 different categories that I'm going to be talking about when it comes to these 2 watches. The first one is going to be the case. The second one is going to be the crystal. The third is going to be the lugs. The fourth is going to be the dial. And the fifth is going to be the movement. Now, these are not watches even in the same category. One is a vintage watch from the 70s that's still valued at $4,500. A brand new Omega Speedmaster is valued at $7,500. The Undone Snoopy Aces is $365. So clearly they're not the same watch. That's not my intention. My intention is if you like the aesthetic and you can't spend $4,500 or you don't want to spend $1,000 or even $500, that the Undone Snoopy Aces is a great alternative for a similar aesthetic. So let's start out with the case. Now, the case on both are 40 millimeters in diameter, stainless steel case with a combination of both brushed and polished finishes. So first we're going to look at the Omega Speedmaster. So the Speedmaster has a black tachymeter around the bezel, and this has a stainless steel only. It's almost like a negative of this. Black writing, stainless steel. This has stainless steel writing and black. I chose this tachymeter. I could have chosen one similar. I didn't want to. So keep that in mind if you order the Undone Snoopy Aces, that you could get a tachymeter almost exactly similar. However, I love the overall aesthetic of the stainless steel with the black writing over the black with the stainless steel. Now, the case on this, again, like I said, is solid stainless steel. It does have nice brushing along the edges with a mirror top and mirrored bottom. Now, this has a very similar when it comes to the actual polish. It has a brushed in the center, polished at the top, polished at the bottom. Now, these also have similar lips on the top just below the crystal. You can see this has a lip right here, and this also has a lip around the top. The difference is this case is more robust. It has a lip, sucks in, has a larger solid lip, and then it sucks in again to the screw down case back. This is a little different in the fact that it has a lip, and then it comes straight, and it comes back to a pressed case back. We'll talk about that in just a minute. The Omega Speedmaster has a crown guard to protect this because this is designed as a tool watch, right? A space watch. So it has crown guards to protect the lugs, and this doesn't have any at all. This is just, again, vintage aesthetic. This is not meant to be a tool watch like the Omega is. This is just for looks only. Now, I was talking about the case backs just a minute ago. The case back on this is a solid case back that's screw down because, you know, when it comes to air resistance and water resistance, the Omega Speedmaster, well, in space, you definitely don't want anything getting in. For this, one of the negative things that I said about this watch is the actual case back. I like the fact that it has this really cool laser design in the back, but, you know, it's just pressed in. I mean, there's nothing really watertight. I think this is watertight to 30 meters. So any watch with a cheaper price point uses the same. It wouldn't have been much more to do a screw down case back. So a little disappointed with that, but you know, it's not a deal breaker. The next thing we're going to talk about is the crystal. Everybody knows that the Omega Speedmaster, at least the vintage Omega Speedmaster, uses a Hesalite crystal over a sapphire crystal or mineral glass. The reason why they use a Hesalite or a plexiglass crystal is because in space, this cannot break, this cannot shatter, or you're causing damage, you're having pieces and bits fly around. So the Hesselite crystal is meant to crack. If this is damaged, it cracks, it doesn't shatter. In fact, anybody who's ever cracked plexiglass can tell you that if it's thin enough plexiglass, you can crack and actually rip plexiglass over it shattering and breaking. Now, this is mineral crystal, so it's hardened a little bit, so this can scratch a lot less. The Hesselite scratches very easily, but you can use polywash to get it off. This doesn't scratch as easily. It does have a similar aesthetic when it comes to actual dome mineral crystal, but you know, again, I'm going to have to give it to this a little bit. I like the Hesselite. I like the fact that it has a function, but I hate that it scratches so easily. If that was my watch, it would drive me nuts. Thank God it's a loaner. Again, but I would have preferred a sapphire, but it's very expensive to make a really curved sapphire domed crystal. So I don't really, again, it's not really a deal breaker. I'm just showing you the similar aesthetics that these have. A nice curved crystal on the top that gives a really lovely distortion at the right angle. Next, we're going to talk about the lugs. In the previous video where I reviewed the Omega Speedmaster, I talked about how beautiful I think the lugs on this watch are. They're very unique in the design. Curves over, and not only does it curve over here on the edge, it curves over and down in the center. It's polished along the inner, it's brushed along the inner, polished along the top, and brushed again along the outside. It just gives it nice depth. I love the look of these lugs. It's very unique, the Omega Speedmaster. Now, Undone has taken a different approach. They just use straight vintage style lugs. I'm sure it was probably to save money. Again, I don't really blame them for that. But I actually like the aesthetic of the straight lugs. It gives it more of a vintage profile than it does, you know, something again that's trying to copy the Omega Speedmaster. They're like I said in the past, this is not something to copy this. This is something that stands on its own. And the fact that they chose to do more of a vintage style straight lug shows that they're not trying to copy it. They're trying to do, you know, a collaboration, which is similar aesthetics, however, not the exact same. The next thing we're going to talk about is the dial. Now, nothing says quality like a dial that doesn't age at all. This is 40 years old, and you can see that the white is still crisp and clear on this dial like the day it was made. This isn't something that's been put away in a drawer for the last 40 years. It has been worn. I know the guy that wears it. He doesn't wear it all the time, but he still wears it. And it looks wonderful. All the print still looks great. It's all crisp and clear. There's no aging. There's nothing. It's just a beautiful dial. That's what quality gets you. Quality gets you timelessness. Now this, I chose the vintage aesthetic on this dial. I could have chosen white writing. I like the look of the sort of yellowish orange markers. Again, that vintage appeal, like it's aged over time, even though it's brand new. The lume on these are similar in the fact that they suck on both, and the subdials are slightly different. The Omega Speedmaster has subdials at the 9, 3, and 6. This has just 2 subdials at the 12 and the 6, so a little different, but again, I still think it has a great aesthetic. They both have very, very similar aesthetics, both great looking watches. Last but not least is going to be the movement in the watch itself. This is a Caliber 861 hand wind from Omega itself. It is a Swiss movement. It's a great movement. 40 years old, it's been serviced, but you know, it still runs like it's supposed to. Automatic, has a second subdial, has a few subdials here that run along with the chronograph function, but overall, it's a great watch. Swiss watch, $4,500. The Undone uses the Mecha Quartz like I explained in the previous video where I did a review on this, and the Mecha Quartz works in the fact that it's a quartz. You can see that this second hand ticks, but when you hit the chronograph function, it switches into a mechanical mode where it runs the quartz. That's why it says Mecha Quartz, because it's a mechanical quartz movement. So it's sort of the best of both worlds. Could they have went with an automatic? Yes, they could have went with a Seiko automatic or something similar. Instead, they went with a Seiko Mecha Quartz. I don't blame them for it. Most people like quartzes anyway because you don't have to worry about it running out, resetting the time. This has a date function. The Omega doesn't have a date function, but that also has a third subdial, and this only has 2. Now, overall, like I explained before, these are not the same watch. I think this has a great vintage appeal, like the Omega Speedmaster. They both have tachymeters, they both are chronographs, and the Undone Watches is a collaboration with NASA. So this is a NASA watch, this is a collaboration watch, not identical watches, but I think they have very similar aesthetics. Both have great appeals for different type of people, and I think that if you're not ready to spend $4,500 on a vintage or $7,500 on a brand new Omega Speedmaster, I think the Undone for under $400 is really, you know, a great option. And I think they both look great. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Now, if you like videos and videos like this, hit that notification bell and leave a comment of what you would like to see next. Some ideas of future videos are, I have a few products coming in the mail from the app Wish. We're going to determine whether or not they're any good or whether you should stay away from the app itself. Anything offering 96% off, maybe a load of crap, we're going to find out. Also, I have an electric Telecaster kit coming. It's completely stripped, everything's in pieces, and I'm going to build it. But I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to turn it into either an epoxy river guitar or an epoxy lava guitar that lights up from the inside. Now, if you find those videos interesting, hit that bell notification so you're notified whenever those videos drop. Until next time.